Hi everyone. Today's video has 3 points and you're going to want to stick around because the third point is a secret as the #1 way to make your nonfiction book marketable. So the topic we're discussing today is the 3 elements of a marketable nonfiction book. By the end of this video, you're going to know what it is that makes a book marketable when it comes to nonfiction. You're going to have the easy, concrete steps necessary to adjust your book, and you're going to feel great knowing that you're setting your book up to sell when it comes to posting it on Amazon. So let's get into it. This is Chris Baird from selfpublishingmadeeasynow.com, where self-publishing doesn't have to be so hard. Hit the subscribe button if you find these videos helpful, and make sure you check out below in the description. You can grab a copy of my absolutely free self-publishing checklist that contains the secrets to help you get your book self-published and selling. So let's get into it. For my own story, I started out without even considering whether there was a market for the books that I was writing on. I was writing books on the subjects of achieving your goals, habits, things that I'm very excited about even today to share with many of my coaching students. I'm going through the steps that are necessary to building up the things that will be required if you're going to succeed when it comes to self-publishing. But when I first started, I had no idea. Is there a market? Isn't there a market? I just thought, why don't I just write a book on the topics that I find exciting, and then we'll see what happens. Later, I discovered that was a huge role with regards to the books aren't going to sell themselves unless you're driving paid traffic. That's like buying Amazon ads, or you're using keywords where your book itself is targeting the keywords. People are searching for things just like they do in Google, and your keywords are optimized so that they will find your book, not other people's book, but your book on page 1 of Amazon and even possibly Google. The other thing that I discovered the important role was of author platform, and that would be the idea that people know who you are. You've been in this genre for a while, so when your name shows up with a new book, people can't wait to buy it. This is the reason, one of the reasons why a lot of people are so disappointed, is that when you're going to put your very first book on the market, you assume you don't need any of these 3. We don't need the organic reach within the keywords. We don't need to have paid traffic in order to help people find our book, and we assume that if they don't know who we are, they'll still buy our book. All because our book is such a quality book worth reading, and then it gets on the market and we discover that it never plays out the way that we would hoped that our book would when it hits the market. And that can be quite of a disappointment, and that's one of the reasons we focus on these 3 primary areas when it comes to getting your book to sell. The thing is, on my own experience, I had a limited budget and no platform. Who knew me? Nobody knew me. I wasn't associated at all with the keywords that I was targeting. I didn't even know what keywords really were at the time. And then the thing was my keywords were completely off. I didn't have the tools. I didn't know keywords were something that would even be important. I wasn't actually sure how people would find the book. I thought maybe they'd search for it or maybe it'd show up somewhere. I would try on social media to put blogs out. There was lots of strategies I was using, but how are people going to find me if I wasn't using the right keywords? So I started fixing one thing at a time in order to get the increase in sales. And so which area did I target? Well, the answer is I targeted all 3 with the keywords, the paid ads, and then targeting the writing blogs and such so I could bring traffic over, building a name around what I was writing on. And see, the thing is with more sales, I suddenly had a bigger budget to run back into Amazon to generate even more sales as we're building up an audience. To date, I've run about a little over 100 million times my ads have shown to people on Amazon. So I continually am testing out what are the best strategies and raising the budgets as more money comes in, where you're able just to reinvest the money that's coming in order to drive bigger and better sales and also to put more books on the market. So the 3 elements of a marketable nonfiction book. So the first one is we always target an existing market. We are not trying to create like a fidget spinner or something that's never existed before. We want to give people something that they're already there. There are people who are buying. But how would we know who's buying? Well, the answer is it's the rankings on Amazon. We can see based upon the rankings how many books. If you see a lot of, for example, in the nonfiction area, this also works with the fiction, but within the nonfiction, paleo diet books or keto diet or whatever it might be, we see a lot of sales going on. Well, we know there's a market because somebody is buying those books. If it's in the top 100,000 books on Amazon for the basic sales rank, what's going to happen there is that we're going to see that those books are selling at least a copy a day. As we move closer to the number one spot, it's going to sell way more than one copy a day. But if we're looking at books or targeting keywords that are outside of this 100,000 range, the problem is there isn't an audience. We're not going to be able to make a full-time living off of our books if we're going from that route. So the second point, which is also very important, we need a shortage of books in the market that we're targeting. We want to make sure there aren't that many. But remember, if there's 0 books, well, how do we know that there is a market for it? I mean, there's lots of books that you could be writing. For example, sometimes it would be areas like people buy magazines, like fashion magazines, but fashion books, maybe not so much. Just like, so you would be looking at these sorts of categories. So we want to make sure we're not shooting for a market that doesn't exist. Now, some people, they tell me, oh no, I want to be, a starving artist, and I'm going to come out with these books regardless of whether there's a market, regardless of whether there's a shortage of books. I'm just going to ignore that. And the answer is, well, that is completely acceptable. You just have to understand you're going to get a lot less people reading your book. So if your book is about providing value to the world, giving your story a chance to breathe, or in this nonfiction case, helping people solve unique problems they have with regards to puppy training or dieting or maybe fixing their car or woodwork or vertical gardening, whatever the case might be, we want to make sure that they're going to have the tools they need. But they're not going to be reading your book and getting their problem solved if they're not even seeing your book, because you're blowing off a lot of the important things. Maybe you'll be dead by the time your book becomes popular. And I don't know if that's a really positive thing, because then your chances are even lower of being discovered, especially based upon the number of books that are hitting the market on a regular basis. So you're going to want to make sure that you, A, have a market, and 2, that market is very hungry. So that is to say, there's not that many books on the market. And tip number 3 is, how do we pull this together? Well, I pull it together with a tool known as KDSpy. You can check out my affiliate link below in the description. It's an amazing tool that gives you the ability to find these hungry readers within these hungry markets. And what we're talking about is finding specifically those golden zones of keywords where our book has a title and those keywords are in the title. And what it is that it's looking at, for example, the top 20 results inside of, for that keyword, and checking how many of those books are in the top 100,000. So that gives us our very first number. And then we're going to look and see how many books exist using that keyword on Amazon already. And then when we divide those together, total number of books divided by the number of books in the top 100,000 in the results of the 20 that we get from KDSpy, it's going to tell us exactly what we need to know to see that our book is going to sell. And when we target these particular keywords in that golden zone, for me it's a ratio of about 30 or less, then what happens is you're going to see that your books are hitting a market that's starving to buy books, but so few books that you don't need the author's platform. In other words, and then people would say, well, what does a cover need to look like, or the description? Well, we're just looking at the books that are already selling and say, we want our cover designer to match this one. Now I use, you can see below in my affiliate link for the cover designer that I use on Fiverr to do my books for, I think it's $15, $18. It's so unbelievably cheap, and then able to get those covers quickly produced. And I say, I need a cover that looks just like these top bestseller covers. And then my description is very similar as well. And then when we pull it all together, we're able to quickly identify what it is that's going to get our books to sell. Then we can bundle those books together and we put them out onto the market. And it's amazing. I'm still blown away by seeing these books on a daily basis I put out years ago, continuing to sell. They fund my entire business, a lot of these books. So it's a really fantastic thing that you're definitely not going to want to ignore. And that's why KDSpy is my secret tip of the day. So my question for you is, what do you need to fix on your nonfiction book? What are the key things on marketing that you have failed to do that you're going to want to fix? I want to know from you because it will help me better understand where you're coming from and produce better videos. And check up above me here for more video answers to your self-publishing questions. Thanks.